Is some light at the end of the tunnel for parts of Southern California.
That's right, but firefighters are still not able to let their guard down because of the high winds out there. We've talked about this now for weeks, and
Yes.
it's the winds that are really fueling these fires. Dave Summers reports.
Using time-lapse photography, this UC San Diego camera illustrates the rapid rate of the Border 2 fire near Otay Mountain Truck Trail. Just before 2 Thursday afternoon, it started out just a few puffs of smoke, but quickly became an inferno.
And I immediately thought, oh my God, here we go again, 03 and 07.
From the lower Otay Lakes, Pete Herrera saw the ominous pillar of black smoke on the horizon, then the flames dancing on the ridge crest.
Seeing the destruction up in LA just breaks your heart, and it just reminds you that you got to be on watch because that could happen here too.
The Gilman fire broke out near UC San Diego. The fire, which was held to just a few acres, threatened several La Jolla homes. There were orders to evacuate for people living near the canyon. Fortunately, San Diego fire and rescue crews were able to get in front of it with an immediate air attack and keep the fire within the canyon.
It's only January, right? So our crews are tired. They're overworked right now, but we're doing good.
Yet another fire burned in the river bottom along I-8 near Alvarado Canyon Boulevard, but only charred about a half acre. The 7th Santa Ana event of the month started with a morning fire in Mission Valley. Small as it was dangerously close to densely populated neighborhoods. It was the second in the area in as many days. It is thought to have started in a homeless encampment. San Diego has been plagued with high winds and wind gusts all week.
It's pretty dangerous. It's pretty dangerous.
Veteran truck driver George is delayed while the road ahead is closed.
The winds are too high and we're not allowed to go through the overpass. If you're not heavy enough, man, most likely it'll tip you over.
The county remains under a red flag warning even though the winds have reached their peak because the air remains dry. Most places have humidity levels hovering around just 5%. It's been a nail-biting week for those wondering what's next. But with every successful extinguished brush fire is a bit of encouragement.
The professionalism, the training of these pilots, and the courage it takes to do what they're doing, and that they're doing it for all of us, and just makes me feel real assured that, yeah, we're going to be safe.
Let's bring in Chris. Chris, you have become sort of a de facto expert on these things, and usually weather folks on our side of the country don't have to worry about it, but it is interesting because it's not something we face here necessarily.
Oh, and it's a really unique setup. So you need the winds to be from the right direction, and then everything squeezes through the desert and then through the canyons. And I personally have learned a lot about the climatology of Southern California, but the Santa Ana winds is oftentimes up to a 5 to 6 month event, depending on the duration of it. Usually it lasts about 4 to 5, but just depends on the season. But these winds are hot, they're dry, and they increase the fire danger, and they squeeze through the canyons right here. So we're going to learn a little bit more about the Santa Ana winds and all the above. But first off, let's get to a few stats on the Santa Ana winds that maybe you didn't know about, such as that there's usually about 10 to 25 Santa Ana wind events that occur annually through this part of the United States. And we just heard in that story just most recently that they had up to 7. That's right, 7 over the last month. Now, typical Santa Ana wind event is going to be about 1 to 7 days. On average, it's usually about 3 days long, and that's what we've been seeing through most of these events, most of those 7. But the longest on record was 14 days long. And note, a typical Santa Ana wind event will have sustained winds up to 30 and gusts as high as 50 to 60 miles per hour. So we're getting up to tropical storm strength. They typically start in October, they peak around December into January, and then they end usually February into March, just depends on the conditions and the way that things are set up. Since the Santa Ana winds aren't really active right now, it's just an elevated wildfire danger. I know, just an elevated, but a critical to extreme has been intermittent over the last month or so. But let's talk about the winds. For one, you want the winds to come from the right direction. Notice where they're coming from. They're coming out of the south. That's where those arrows. Gusts up to about 30 miles per hour. A typical Santa Ana wind comes from the northeast. So that northeast direction is where it's going to be blowing that drier air. We're actually blowing in more moisture starting today, heading into tomorrow. That's great news. Gusts still getting up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. That's the bad news. It doesn't matter what direction these winds are coming from. They're still going to cause really a significance. But then here's the good news that we were talking about last half hour. Rain. Rain is also arriving Saturday, heading into Sunday. That's also going to lighten the winds a little bit. So at least things are improving for now. But boy, do we have a long ways to go.